Hey, welcome, welcome. So glad you could be here with me today. Boy, do we have a great show tonight. We are going to be talking about the Karen Reed case. It's in trial right now. I think they're on day 11 of the trial as we speak. It just started 1 hour ago, the trial, which is the link that I put in. Don't watch it during my show. When I'm done, you can go to that link. That's Emily D. Baker. And for this case, she's the best show. So we got Mumsy in the house. Mumsy in the house. We got Chalet in the house. Chalet in the house. Woohoo! All right. So let's get going. Yeah. What is it? Do I have like eyeshadow in the Is that better? It's better. All right. Why am I not showing? Well, I am now. It wasn't showing because I didn't start the live yet. And Andy's in the house. Andy's in the house. All right. So I don't know if you guys know anything at all about this case. So I'm going to give you a basic rundown, and then we'll talk about what's happened in the last couple of days in the trial. A lot of people are comparing this legally to the Delphi case in that the defense is putting forth a third-party culprit defense, and the judge is a female, and the judge has been really hard on the defense during the pre-trial hearings about what can be admitted or not or whatever, right? And so in that, I have to say what I've seen of the trial so far, the judge actually seems very fair in what she sustains and what is it? Okay, I object, and it's either overruled, sustains or overrules, right? And she seems like she's being pretty fair to me at this point. Now, whether or not she was prior, I don't know because I wasn't following it then. Okay, so Karen Reed, who's on trial for murdering her boyfriend, whose name is John O'Keefe. Now, he was a member of the Boston Police Department. Okay, they had been drinking with friends. There was kind of like an after party after the bars for the birthday party, for celebrating the birthday of a fellow officer's. It was a fellow officer's son's birthday, and so the parents were drinking with Karen and John. All right. And so then they say, okay, we're going home now, and anybody who wants to stop by and wish our son a happy birthday, who was like 23, then, just come on by. So Karen, according to the prosecution, Karen was driving with a high blood alcohol content. She wasn't tested right away until like the next day. And they did some calculations that said she must have had a really high alcohol content. She drops John off to go into the house, and she wasn't going to stay. She was just going to drop him off. And there's a snowstorm like the blizzard of the century the snow has started falling. She starts to drive, according to the prosecution, she started to drive off, went about 20 feet, and then put her car in reverse, went back, backed into John, caused significant injuries, and then he ended up on the lawn of the house and never went inside because he was injured. Nobody saw him. He got covered in snow, and that was, he died, perhaps of even hypothermia. We haven't had the medical examiner on the stand yet to know exactly what the specific cause of death and everything was. The next morning, Karen wakes up. Well, Karen wakes up about 5 a.m., I guess, because this is around 12:30 or something, right? So around 5 a.m., she goes home, she goes to sleep. She wakes up around 5 a.m. and realizes that John didn't come back. So she goes out, she calls some friends, and she goes out looking, and she finds him on the lawn. He's trying to do CPR. Police come, first responders come. They take him away in an ambulance, but he's gone. He's dead. At which point she's saying to somebody, potentially, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. But that's controversial at this point. That has come out in the trial. But it's controversial as to whether she might have said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Not just I hit him, right? But on the prosecution side, she said that. Aunt B was great. Spoken like Aunt B. Did I say something like Aunt B? Okay, good. Okay. So what the defense is saying happened with their third-party culprit defense is that John O'Keefe was let out of the car. This is the story as they describe it. All right. John O'Keefe got out of the car, went up into the house. He was then ushered into the basement, which they've done a lot of testimony on like where the door to the basement is. Can you see it from here? Can you see it from there? Is there another exit out? There's like a hatch. So you've got the door inside the house, but then there's also like a hatch to outside into the backyard and stuff. So they're saying that he was ushered down into the basement where there was a fight. That they had a German Shepherd that was part of a canine unit, perhaps retired from the canine unit. But I've heard that it wasn't just a German Shepherd mix, but that it was actually trained as a canine. Don't quote me on that. They had the dog. They say the dog's nervous around people it doesn't know. They say that, according to testimony, that the dog has attacked other people in the past. And so that he got beat up, like in a fight, and then he got bit by the dog. Perhaps he died or was at least unconscious or something. They carried him out that hatch into the backyard, went through the side gate, and dropped him in the front yard to die in the cold. And at which time one of the people checked on her. A person that hasn't been on the stand yet. She did a Google search like at 2:30 in the morning. Say, how long does it take for someone to die in the cold? It's just like, and I don't know. I don't know who's right. Is it the prosecution story or is it the defense's story? I don't know which one is right, but I'll tell you one thing. This family of police are they're covering up. Things were not done right. And they're making themselves look suspicious, either because they did something or because they just didn't want like the publicity of someone having died on their lawn or whatever, so maybe he did. Maybe it was a total accident and he never made it into the house. And whether or not Karen Reed hit him or not, maybe he tripped and maybe he slipped on the snow and hit his head on a rock or something, and then was unconscious but froze to death. Or maybe she hit him. or maybe it was totally accidental, or maybe they are completely involved and covering everything up, right? I don't know which, but they're acting really suspicious. And there's a lot of stuff. So we're going to kind of go in. Mrs. Beasley, isn't that a doll? And so I'm going to go in and now tell you some more of the details. And I've got some things to show you. So let me present. Let me share my screen with you. I'm going to share this screen. Can you guys see this? I'm not going to go over everything that it says, but look at how complicated that is. That's all the players in this case. And the blue squares are people who are law enforcement. Either so I mentioned that John O'Keefe was Boston Police Department, but they're kind of like in this suburb area, not in Boston. It's a little town called Canton. And so some of the people are on the Canton police, some of them are state police, some of them are ATF. I think, let me look at this one. Yeah, Brian Higgins is a federal ATF agent. There's the Canton police chief, deputy chief, the police chief, the Massachusetts state trooper. And Brian right here, Brian Albert is the owner of the house. It says Boston Police Sergeant. Now he has since retired. Let me just tell you a little bit about the owner of the house. I know you can't see this, but I'll read it for you. He trained as an MMA fighter. He kind of denies that, but he did, because they just finished. Yesterday he was on the stand. He was actually on the stand for a day and a half. So they finished with him this morning. He was on all day yesterday, and then they finished it with him this morning. And he did say that he's got some boxing. He did boxing 20 years ago. And apparently there was some kind of news story kind of thing that talked about his boxing. And he had to kind of admit that. Anyway, he's the owner of 34 Fairview Road, which is where the house where all of this happened. His parents built the house. Then subsequently him and his wife moved in. I think they have 5 kids. They were the owner of Chloe. That's the name of the German Shepherd. But they did get rid of Chloe 4 months after the death. Okay. I'll talk a little bit about Chloe as we go on. He has maintained that O'Keefe never entered the house. It was very interesting that he stayed in the house while the initial investigation was going on. So you got all these police officers and everything. Him and his wife are like, they didn't hear any phone call. There was all these like missed calls, and then there were calls that were like answered that lasted for 22 seconds or something. And they said, no, I never talked to that person. No. And we'll get into a little bit of that. And then they put the house up for sale and moved in November of 2022. So all this happened January, the end of January 28th was the night that everyone was out drinking. And the 29th was the morning when they found John dead. Okay, so everybody with me so far? Oh, Mrs. Beasley, the doll you cut open. Yes, I remember that. Okay. So you're all with me. So now this trial is so entertaining, especially if you're watching it with Emily D. Baker. Let me share this tab instead.
Fairly older,
2012, yes.
Yes, it was much disparaged.
Okay,
She
so
called it a
Emily
Taurus.
D. Baker.
Cherokee versus Europe.
I have the link at the
It drives
beginning.
way better in the snow.
I'll
So
share.
when you
We've
left,
heard.
Your apartment.
The maligned
east
Ford.
to drive to,
I'm not even sure who this person is.
was it snowing at that point?
It was.
Can you recall?
I was like,
It's an interesting question.
I had hit pause. This is the daughter of Brian Albert. the owner of the house. And that's where I left off to start the stream. Oh, you're making an Eggo waffle. I just ate some popcorn. Okay. So you want to make sure that you go watch Emily D. Baker on this trial. And I mean, it's so hilarious. There, at one point, okay, wait. So let me tell you how the trial's been unfolding. So the prosecution, of course, calls their witnesses first. The defense can cross-examine those witnesses. Once the prosecution is done laying out their case, then the defense gets their turn to call any of their own witnesses, right? So we're still in the prosecution laying out its case. The first thing they did was they were having police and investigators and everybody give their testimony. All right. Maybe not 100% of them, but a lot of them. Then they started going into all the adults that were involved that night. And they showed, when the police investigators were on, then they, or I say police, but law enforcement, when the law enforcement was on, then there were some things that came out about the evidence. And I'll get into that. You had popcorn last night. Cool. Love popcorn. So first they did police, then they did the adults that were involved that night, showing footage of the bars that they were at, what time people were in, what their state of mind was, like were they friendly and were they horsing around? Did they look drunk, stumbling or not able to walk, which is no, everybody seemed to be fine. They talked a lot about the order of everything that happened. And when you hear the prosecution first going at, with their questions, it gets a little bit boring, and the prosecutor is always saying, in what way, no, if any, what if any, and I think that's it is, who if any, what if any, before every single question. And he's just laying out all these details about the house, about the bar, about this, about who did you talk to, blah, blah, blah. What time did this person come? What time did this person leave? Is this your house? Is this, I mean, it's like that part's kind of boring. But then once the defense gets under the cross-examination, oh my goodness, it really starts getting interesting. Conversations with different people. The defense has actually come straight out and asked a few of these people, did you have a conversation to get to set your story straight about what you were going to say to the police? Come right out and ask them, let's see. By the way, there's no cameras, at least it's been admitted yet, of any neighbor or anything that might have had footage of John getting out of the car and Karen backing into him or not backing into him. Nothing. There's nothing. There's no footage. There's no neighborhood cameras. Even the police, when they arrive, they don't have body cameras, but they have dash cams. So you can see and hear a little bit from their dash cams. So the point they're at now, they've interviewed all the adults, and now that they're going, they're calling to the stand the children of the adults. Okay, like the first one they called was Brian Jr., whose birthday it was, and then this is Caitlin, so the son and the daughter of the owners of the house. And I'll tell you one thing, that the feeling of this trial, as far as what the prosecution is doing with their case, because they haven't done anything that says Karen did it. Like, here's the autopsy. He was hit by a car. Here's the evidence that her car hit him, and that's why he died. Zero. They've got nothing that they've presented so far, except for their opening statement. But as far as presenting evidence, presenting, calling witnesses, zero that says she did it. It's all this foundational stuff. And to be honest, what it feels like is that the prosecution is the attorney for the Alberts. That it's like they're trying to defend the Alberts and say they didn't have anything to do with this. John O'Keefe was never in the house. They didn't hear anything. They didn't see anything. That they couldn't have had anything to do with this. Okay. So, and that's kind of strange, I think, for a prosecution. You don't defend the witnesses, but yet that it's almost feels like his entire case is about defending them rather than prosecuting Karen. Very interesting. So let's see, the dog, Chloe. One interesting thing in this trial is that when Brian and Nicole Albert, they're the owners of the house, right? The husband and wife. Whenever they were asked any questions about Chloe, the dog, they would always say it this, it that. Yet they were saying that it was like, they had the dog for 6 years or something, like a really long time to bond with the family. When your kids are like junior high through high school, this dog would be a member of the family. But yet they kept referring to the dog as it. I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Now, the son and daughter, since they've been on the stand today, and when they were asked about the dog, they referred to it as her. They called the dog her. So I thought that was very interesting. You might have seen in my title, I did the hashtag on, was it mysterious butt dial or something? It was actually a quote from this trial. It wasn't me making that up. The defense attorney actually said, whatever's in the hashtag. I can't see the title right now. But whatever I put in the title on YouTube, that was said by the defense attorney, because Brian was saying that he had his cell phone in the bed, not charging. And so when he's like, look, they're showing him the phone records, and he's going, no, I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't answer it. Jessa's in the house. Woohoo, Jessa, welcome. We're talking about the Karen Reed case. Yeah, they do. They do. Especially if they're in your pants pocket and you sit down or something, and you get that. But he's got an iPhone, and it seems like the screen would be locked. If you haven't been using it, that maybe it's locked. So was he using it or not using? His testimony was just getting really mixed up. He'd say one thing and then he'd kind of change it. But in the end, but he's the one who said it had to have been a butt dial, just crazy. Finishing up with the dog, when they were questioning the wife, Nicole Albert, one of the things that came out that wasn't known was that she admitted that she had contact with the people they rehomed. If anybody said you got rid of the dog, they'd say, no, we rehomed it. Remember, they always said it. We rehomed it. And they had bought the dog from someplace in Texas. She said that she asked them for help. So everybody thought the dog might have went back to Texas. but she asked them for help to rehome it. They found a home in Vermont. They drove it up to Vermont or halfway and exchanged, the dog, gave it to the new people. And then she admitted that she'd had contact with that person 2 or 3 times since then. And earlier they had been like making out, we don't know where the dog is. But yet now it came out that she had contact with them after. So they know. And I'll get to why the dog's important. So Brian Albert, owner of the house, this was interesting about, so there's like some things that in and of themselves, okay, they got rid of the dog. The dog bit somebody. They couldn't keep the dog anymore. They got rid of the dog 4 months after 4 months after John died. Okay, it happens. They happened to get rid of the dog. But there's like so many things that start adding up. It's like, can you have this many coincidences? You can have one coincidence. You can have 2. Can you have this many? So another one is that Brian upgraded his phone. Okay, so the new model of iPhone comes out in September. So John died in January. Later the same year in September. At least I think it was in the same year. I wrote down September 2022. He decides to get a new phone. He's upgrading his phone. He means he goes into the store and he gets the next model. All right. And so he gives them his old phone. And that's it. So he doesn't have the phone anymore. And any data that would have been on that phone would have been wiped. Now, the date that he did this in September, it was September 22nd. Whether it was in 2022 or 2023, I'm not sure. But the date, September 22nd, on September 23rd, the order came down to preserve, that everybody involved had to preserve their phones. So the day before he gets his upgrade, and there had been hearings on the phone evidence, the defense pleading with the court to get the court order to preserve the phones. And it had been denied, and they kept trying and everything. They finally get their court order. So with all his friends in law enforcement and in this case, it's pretty easy to assume that they were like, I think the judge is going to grant the order. So, or maybe she granted it and it's like, we're going to give notice tomorrow. So if you want to do anything with that information, now's the time, right? That's what the defense is implying. Is that what happened, or is it just a coincidence? The jury will decide. The other thing is they moved from their house shortly, maybe 4 months. No, the dog was 4 months, but not so long after that. Now, in the testimony, both Nicole and Brian said that they had already put the house on the market before, or they at least talked about selling it. Maybe it wasn't listed on the market, but they had talked about selling it the year before. That they were on the last 2 kids. I think their kids are all grown now. They're all like over 20, 21. So the kids are grown. They've got a 5-bedroom house. We should downsize. We should move and we should downsize. And I mean, go figure. It could be a complete coincidence, but they did totally remodel the basement before they sold the house. They remodeled a couple of different things that the defense is saying that, no, this was crime scene. Now, the police never investigated the house. They never took any forensic evidence from the house. As far as were concerned, everything happened outside at the curb of the street. So there was like no need to collect any evidence from inside the house. Right. So that's one. And I gotta say, when they were calling the police and investigators and law enforcement as witnesses, the shoddiness of this investigation was really bad. Was really, because if they are innocent, if the Alberts are innocent and nothing happened and John never made it into the house, it might have been good to like have evidence that he wasn't in the house, because now it just looks like they're hiding everything. There's been a lot of questions about Colin Albert, who I think is a nephew of Brian and Nicole. And whether or not he was there, what time he left. Well, I think there had been, before the testimony, there had been question about whether he was even there at the house. They admitted he was at the house, that when they arrived coming back from the bars, that Colin was on his way out the door. But they didn't actually see him go out the door, but he was on his way out the door. So I think that with this third party thing, it's possibly that Colin might have been involved, had some kind of problem with John O'Keefe. Because there was a lot of talk about establishing Colin. Did you see him leave? What time did you see him and everything? I'm rehashing again. Okay. So about the investigation, one of the biggest things, in fact, I should have like looked it up. Let me share some other tabs. So these are the people that were in the house. You had Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, husband and wife, owners of the house. You had their friends, Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, married, and Brian Higgins. All right. You have to look and see who's Jennifer related to. There's Matthew McCabe, Jennifer McCabe, married sibling. She's the sister of Nicole Albert. Okay. She's the sister with Nicole. Jennifer and Nicole are sisters. Brian Higgins, who's a friend of theirs in the ATF. Then Brian Albert Jr., here it was his birthday. Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson are his friends that were there. And then the ones that are under question is Chris Albert, Julie Albert. That would be, Chris is Brian's brother. So Chris and Julie, Colin Albert, who I already mentioned, and John O'Keefe. Did he go in the house or not? All right. And here share this tab instead. Here you can see how they're all related. Here's Brian Albert, married to Nicole. They're kids that aren't off to college. They're still living in town. Brian Albert Jr., Caitlin Albert. And then brother is Brian and Chris are brothers, Julie, and their son is Colin. And then Nicole's sister is Jennifer McCabe, husband Matt McCabe, and they've got 3 children. That's how everyone's related. So we all got that. Hey, Snow's in the house. Snow's in the house. Woohoo. So let me actually Google search. Okay, I should have pulled up this picture for you. Karen Reed, red solo cups. Images. Okay, so I'm going to take this image, open it in a new tab. Oh, well, that's small. Oh, but can I zoom in on that? No. Let me. I'm checking, no, that's not big. What about this one? These are thumbnails. That's why, so they're not large. Okay, I'm just gonna share this one. In here, this is a picture, and let me make sure you guys can see it. Yeah, I'm sorry it's not any bigger than that, but it gives you an idea. Those are 6 red Solo cups inside a paper bag. Now, sometimes law enforcement has clean, sterile paper bags that they use to collect evidence in. So of all the police cars that show up, nobody has an evidence collection kit. So across the street is a lieutenant that lives across the street. So they go knock on his door at 5:30 in the morning, and they say, "Hey, dude, do you got something that we gotta like get some blood?" It's John O'Keefe's blood splatter in the snow, and they want to collect it. So he gives them some red Solo cups, and from somewhere, I don't know if it was from the lieutenant or if they had it in their car, is a shopping bag, because there's another picture of this that's, you can see the name of the store, Stop and Shop or whatever, right? You can see, so it's just who knows how many people have touched this shopping bag. The red Solo cups, under oath, he did say that they were in a bag, a sealed bag, and that they opened it. But don't you usually wash things, even if they're like sealed in a bag, before you put your drinks in them? You just like use them right out of the bag. I know Dixie cups we used to, but anyway, so then they scooped up the blood in the snow and put them in here. Then for like, so they're like, where's the evidence? What's the normal procedure? Well, we take it to the evidence locker, and because it's such a small town and there's so many police officers, law enforcement people like involved, they decided to let the state troopers handle the investigation or something. And so they thought that, or they knew that the state troopers were coming to pick it up. But the defense on their cross-examination is going, it was never entered into evidence. It was never checked into the evidence locker. So like, it turns out that like for 3 days, they were just sitting on, the garage for the police. So they have a name for it. I can't think of the name for it. But so like the police can roll into the garage, shut the bay door, and then escort a prisoner, or someone that they've arrested and that they're going to book into jail, and then escort them into the jail, right, into the station. That way they're secure that they can't run away, right? Because the bay doors close, then they get them out of the car and take them in. Yes, right out of the bag. So this was just sitting on the floor next to so they towed her vehicle. They impounded her vehicle for forensics of Karen Reed's vehicle, an SUV, a black SUV. And the bag's just sitting by the tailgate of there. So in other words, not only is there potential for contamination of the blood, but if somebody wanted to, they could have taken some of that blood and put it on her car. Now, I don't know that they've said that, they haven't showed any forensic evidence. They're like, they're interviewing witnesses first. And so they're not actually like presenting actual evidence yet. I haven't heard if any of his blood was found. I don't think there was any blood found, but somebody could do that if they wanted to, because the bag was just there. Yeah. It's like, how, I don't know. It's just with that. So the red Solo cups was a big deal. The other thing is, he said, one of the law enforcement officers said that maybe the taillight was cracked or something. It was like broken. But when they tried to remove it, it broke into pieces. Right there in the shop garage thing. They broke it. They said they broke it. You know, because then what happened is that when they collected evidence on the scene, it wasn't until like they went back later that they found, oh, you want to know something else? I'm gonna write this down. Leaf blower. Leaf blower. So John O'Keefe is taken in the ambulance to the hospital. He's pronounced dead. They go next door, they get the red Solo cups, they collect some blood. Then the lead investigator at the time, right then says, hey, has anybody got a leaf blower? Oh yeah, I live down the block, halfway down the road. Let me go get it. One of the other officers goes and gets this leaf blower because then he was testifying. He said, yeah, I just lived down the road. So I went and I got my leaf blower because the other guy asked for a leaf blower. So they're blowing the snow around trying to collect it. And then that's when they find some broken glass and the broken pieces of taillight. But it wasn't until later in the day because when they first arrive, it's like dark. It's still snowing, and it's dark. And when they're doing the leaf blower, because there's video of him doing, or at least pictures. If it wasn't video, there was pictures, and it's clear. There's no more snow. It's light out. So obviously some time has passed. And that wasn't brought up. Like exactly what, or maybe if it was, I didn't hear, like exactly what time did you go back to do this, to collect this evidence? So the defense is saying that those broken pieces of taillight that happened in the police shop garage, that they were picked up and then placed there at the scene. Now, the piece of the glass, they're saying that John O'Keefe had a glass from the bar in his hand when he got out of the car. So I'm thinking, open container? What? Or was it supposed to be just tonic water or something? Or were they driving around with an open container? Everyone talks about having 5-6 beers, like in 2-3 hours and stuff, like they had to have all been over the limit, and everybody's driving home. Nobody's calling them on that, but whatever, except for Karen Reed. They're calling her on it. And so he's supposed to have had a glass in his hand. So when he got hit by the car, if that's what happened, then the glass broke when he got hit by the car or when he fell. Lord, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. This. And so watching this trial is so entertaining. It's just really, really the best to see how all this is how all these things are coming out. Okay. So Proctor. Okay, wait. Before I shift to that, let me show you this. You can see these deep lacerations. This is John O'Keefe's arm. It looks like some puncture wounds. Have you ever seen a dog bite? These don't really look like. Now this looks like, I don't know if she actually holding did somebody just make this for a thumbnail? Maybe she's holding something else and then they put this picture up. I don't think this has been entered in evidence yet. I don't think they've talked about this. But this is John O'Keefe's arm. What do you do if a dog's coming at you and biting you? I'm starting to think it's not outside the realm. You know how we like to say the butler did it? I'm starting to think maybe Chloe did it, because they do all say, so the time John O'Keefe should have arrived right after Chris and Nicole Albert arriving. He says that he goes inside, whatever, and then he lets the dog out back to do his business. What if the gate wasn't closed properly? That gate on the side of the house, and he's doing his bit. Chloe's doing her business, and then John O'Keefe gets let out of the car and starts walking toward the house, and Chloe busts out of the backyard, and Chloe attacks him. And when he falls down, he gets some bruises and stuff. I mean, I don't know. We haven't seen the whole the medical examiner hasn't testified yet. So we don't know exactly, what all his injuries were. But it appears to be that his injuries are not consistent with somebody backing an SUV into you and like where it. I've been kicked by a horse. 2 hooves. One ended up on my hip and one ended up on my ribs. And it kicked me and flew. I flew, I don't know, 5 to 10 feet. Knocked the wind out of me. So I was like unconscious just for a moment. And then I woke up, I opened my eyes, and I see another. It kicked me all the way from where I was to next to another horse. And so I'm on the dirt, and I open my eyes, I see the hooves of the other horse next to me. And I jump up, and I try to breathe, but my wind had got knocked out of me. And I was like, whoa. And then I sat back down on the dirt. But it's kind of like this reflex. You ever watch Lethal Weapon? And Mel Gibson in the first Lethal Weapon 1, Mel Gibson gets shot, but he's got a bulletproof vest on, and you still get the impact. Even though the bullet doesn't go into you, you still get the impact. And he does exactly the same thing. So he's laying there. Danny Glover comes up and thinks he's dead. And then, boom, he jumps up like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then, whoa, sits right back down. It's exactly what happened. So for a car to back into you, there's certain areas of your body that's going to get hit at certain, here's the fender and here's the, they're saying the taillight got broken during this process. And then it flew him to where he landed and died. But yeah, maybe what if it was Chloe? What if Chloe got out, attacked him, he fell down, hit his head or whatever, and then died of hypothermia after that. And then when they said, Chloe, open the door, she hears the door open because they're checking if she's finished with her business, and she runs back. And then later they find the gate open. What if that happened? I don't know if that supports the facts, because I don't know all the facts. But with everything, and then they want to hide that, right? They want to hide that Chloe did that, right? That would make sense for their hiding, and that they're telling the truth that he never made it into the house. I don't know. We'll have to see. So the investigation, the guy that they had from the state police that was investigating, he's like talking to Brian Albert and his wife Nicole and other people all around the kitchen table, kind of more of a like, oh, well, tell me what happened. Where were you? Okay. Yeah. All right. Make some notes. He didn't separate, because in a real investigation, you separate people. You talk to them individually so that they don't have time to like intimidate each other or double check with each other. You separate. That's normal. That's policing 101, right? They didn't do that. So sees them so the ones that he saw in the morning, that morning that John was found, just talked to them at the kitchen table. Then some of the people, like Caitlin, the daughter, I mean, don't you assess who was in the house? John O'Keefe got, Karen says that she dropped him off to say happy birthday to Brian Jr. Exactly who was in the house at that time to establish whether he made it into the house or not. Right? Did anybody see him in the house? You have to ask each person that was in the house. Caitlin was in the house. They didn't talk to her until like a year later. Maybe the first time 6 months. But no, I think a year. It wasn't until 2023. I wrote it down. May of 2023. He died in January of 2022. A year and a half later, before anybody asked her anything. And that was only because and it was the grand jury. No one from the police interviewed her at all. So that's one example. So what kind of investigation were they even running? It's sad. I mean, that's kind of sad, but more and more things keep coming out with the trial and who they talk to and what they ask. So I highly recommend watching the trial. Let me give you I have to bring back the live and pause it. Copy. Let me give it to you again. Here you go. This is D. Baker. Emily D. Baker. And it's the best one to see it. So I'm gonna just close all of this stuff. We've seen everything. Do you have any questions about this case? I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert about this case, but I've been watching it for a few days. I kind of have a bit of an understanding about what's going on with the case. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can. But I do encourage you to go watch Emily D. Baker and for yourself. It's very entertaining and everything. So otherwise, let's see. It's been about an hour, almost an hour. Nothing. Well, I did kind of go over from the beginning of the show. I did go over the basics. I'll recap it again. Karen Reed had a boyfriend named John O'Keefe. They were out drinking with friends, and one of those friends that they were in this group with, there were two different bars, the Waterfall, and then something's like an Irish pub, like Mick something, like on the same main street of the same of Canton, Massachusetts. So two of the friends were Brian and Nicole Albert. They had a son named Brian Jr., whose birthday was the next day. And he was at home. He was with some friends celebrating his birthday. He didn't want to go out. So they told everybody that they were with, anybody who wants to come back to the house, come wish him a happy birthday. So John O'Keefe wanted to do that. And Karen Reed drove him to the house, let him out, went back home, went to sleep, woke up around 5 a.m. And discovered he was missing, was frantic, called her friends. They went searching, and they found John around 5:30 on the lawn of Brian and Nicole Albert's house. Now, the police are saying that when she dropped him off, she went forward about 20 feet and then went in reverse, like quickly, to purposefully run him over. It wasn't like she accidentally backed into him. She purposely ran him over and killed him and then left him there. If he wasn't dead at that moment, then left him there to die. But the defense is saying that he did go into the house, that she drove off. He went into the house. He was ushered into the basement where a fight proceeded involving males of the house. Which males, they haven't actually named names of who, which ones, but I think it's out there if you like watch other things. But males of the house beat him up, and the dog, a German Shepherd mix, attacked him and caused those wounds in his arm that I just showed you, and then took him through the basement. Has a hatch. It has an into the house door, and then it has a hatch to out in the backyard that they opened the hatch. They took him and they laid him out in the snow. Oh, you are familiar with the case. Yeah. So that's the case. And it's in trial. It's day 11 of the trial right now. I watched for an hour before my show started. And as soon as we end, I'm going to go back. You know what you can do when you're watching on YouTube? Like if you go to this link, the little gear sign is settings. You can go to that and put the speed at 1.5, and then you can catch up. But definitely an entertaining trial. Very sad for John O'Keefe. Is Karen Read guilty or not? I have no idea. As I mentioned, I'm starting to lean towards the dog did it. Poor Chloe. Maybe Chloe got out of the backyard when they took Chloe. They opened they say they opened the door to let Chloe out to do the business, and then closed the door and waited for a while. So what if that was the exact moment that John O'Keefe was walking up to the house and then got attacked? That'd be, if I was an investigator, I would like at least rule that out, right? I would investigate, is that possible? Does the evidence lend to that? Well, there's definitely evidence that he got bit by the dog. I don't think there's any doubt of that. And any doubt. I don't believe there's any way the car made those injuries. So that I have to say. Alrighty. So I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope it wasn't too boring. I hope you, now that you're up on the case, I hope maybe you'll be interested to follow along yourself. And if there's anything like super spectacular that happens, then I might do a show on it. Same thing. If something comes up with Delphi or the Idaho 4, I'll definitely have my opinions about whatever it is. But until something new happens, then there's no need to just harp on about stuff. So you guys know that why do I always start with the second half? Did you know that love transcends time and space? So wherever and whenever you are watching this, you can feel my love, because I love you. Yes. What's coming up tomorrow? Gen X. We'll do the meme thing again, and have fun looking at the memes and sharing our own stories. And if we ramble off, one day last week, we just started rambling about all the different kinds of cakes and snacks that we had when we were kids. We got through maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes of the memes. And then they showed sodas like Tab and Fanta, Knee-High and Tab and Mr. Pibb or something. I don't know. It showed kind of like obsolete sodas, and that got us onto snacks. And then we never went back to the memes. We just spent all our time, searching the images on Google as everybody was talking about everything of their favorite. Hi, Talon. Hi, Talon. Hi, fur babies. Well, you'll have to pet the one cats, because I guess the one cat can't hear me. But give that cat a hug for me, you guys. So yeah, I will see you tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat channel. It will be Gen X playtime. We'll have some fun. So until then,